Carl Gustav Jung, one of the foremost thinkers in depth psychology, introduced powerful ideas that continue to shape modern psychology and self-understanding. Among his many psychological constructs, one of the most intriguing and essential for personal development is the concept of the shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow refers to the hidden, repressed, and often darker side of the human psyche. These are parts of ourselves we prefer not to acknowledge: our fears, weaknesses, suppressed desires, and unresolved trauma. Jung argued that, rather than ignoring or denying these aspects, we must confront and integrate them. By doing so, we move toward a state of individuation, a process in which a person becomes whole by harmonizing the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. This journey is not just about healing or fixing oneself. It's about discovering a more complete and authentic version of who we are. The shadow, then, isn't just a psychological hurdle, it's a gateway to transformation. This essay explores how the shadow plays a vital role in revealing one's life purpose. Through a deeper understanding of Jung's philosophy, we'll examine how integrating the shadow helps us break free from internal conflict, embrace our potential, and ultimately find meaning. Rather than avoiding what frightens us within, Jung's work invites us to turn toward it, because hidden in the shadow may lie the very key to why we are here. Understanding the shadow side. The shadow side of the human personality is formed primarily through social conditioning. From a young age, individuals are taught what is acceptable and what is not, what is good and what is bad. Behaviors and impulses deemed unacceptable by family, religion, or society are often pushed into the unconscious. For example, a child who is taught that anger is bad might suppress their feelings of frustration, which then form part of their shadow. Over time, these disowned traits accumulate and begin to influence behavior from beneath the surface. Jung did not view the shadow as wholly negative. While it does contain socially or morally troubling elements like envy, rage, or deceit, it also holds traits that may be vital to personal growth, such as creativity, confidence, or assertiveness. In this way, the shadow represents not just darkness, but also unrealized potential. It is the repository for all those things we have not yet brought into the light of awareness, including strengths that were stifled early on. The key to working with the shadow lies in conscious recognition. Rather than being controlled by these unconscious forces, we must learn to observe them, understand them, and engage them with compassion. Jung emphasized that the shadow should not be defeated or eliminated, but rather integrated into the whole of the self. In doing so, we become more complete, less fragmented, and more capable of living in alignment with our true nature. Consequences of ignoring the shadow. When the shadow is ignored, it tends to emerge in unhealthy or destructive ways. Jung observed that people often project their shadow onto others, seeing in others the traits they deny in themselves. For example, someone who refuses to acknowledge their own capacity for selfishness may judge others harshly for being self-centered. This mechanism allows the ego to maintain its sense of moral superiority, but it also leads to distorted relationships and unresolved inner conflict. These projections are not harmless. Over time, they create conflict in relationships, breed resentment, and can lead to psychological symptoms such as anxiety, depression, or even compulsive behaviors. Jung noted that what you resist not only persists, but grows. The more we avoid our shadow, the stronger and more disruptive it becomes. This inner tension can make us feel lost or disconnected from our deeper purpose in life. On the other hand, facing the shadow brings about a kind of internal clarity. It becomes easier to identify personal patterns, understand one's emotions, and develop empathy for others. By recognizing the parts of ourselves we've hidden away, we reclaim power and authenticity. Rather than being driven unconsciously by fear, shame, or insecurity, we gain the freedom to choose how we act and what kind of life we want to live. The process of shadow work. Shadow work refers to the practices and inner work required to uncover and integrate the shadow. This can be done through therapy, dream interpretation, journaling, or even engaging with art and storytelling. Jung placed special emphasis on dreams as a tool for shadow exploration, since the unconscious often communicates symbolically through dream images. By reflecting on these images and their emotional tone, we can begin to understand what parts of ourselves are asking to be seen. Another powerful technique Jung developed is called active imagination, a method where one consciously dialogues with aspects of the unconscious, often through visualization or creative expression. This inner dialogue helps illuminate the messages from the shadow and begins the process of transforming them. The goal is not to conquer these parts, but to develop a relationship with them based on understanding and respect. Through this process, individuals often experience personal breakthroughs. What once felt like emotional baggage can become a source of insight and strength. A person who feared their own ambition, for example, might realize that striving for success is not inherently selfish. It can be a way to serve others or fulfill a meaningful calling. The integration of shadow traits can lead to a richer, more dynamic personality, capable of navigating life with depth and resilience. The shadow and life purpose. Jung believed that the shadow, paradoxically, holds the blueprint for personal destiny. Life purpose is not something invented or chosen arbitrarily. It is discovered by peeling away the layers of conditioning and fear that obscure our true selves. The parts we've exiled to the shadow may contain clues to what we were meant to do in this world. For Jung, living one's purpose involves aligning with the self, the organizing principle of the psyche that represents wholeness. Often, the call to purpose comes disguised as crisis. People may find themselves in emotional turmoil, questioning their career, relationships, or sense of meaning. These moments, painful as they are, frequently signal that the shadow is demanding to be seen. Ignoring the call may lead to existential numbness, while engaging it opens the door to a more purposeful life. The journey is not linear, but each confrontation with the shadow reveals another piece of the inner puzzle. Real-life examples abound. An artist who suppressed their creativity for years may rediscover it through shadow work and find purpose in expressing their truth. A teacher who feared their authority might uncover a natural gift for leadership. In each case, the shadow becomes a guide rather than a threat, a symbol of what is possible when one chooses to be whole rather than safe. Shadow in myth, religion, and popular culture. Jung frequently referenced mythology and religion to illustrate the universality of the shadow. He saw myths as expressions of archetypes, universal patterns of the psyche. In mythology, the hero's journey often involves descent into darkness, such as the Greek myth of Orpheus, or the biblical story of Jonah. These stories mirror the psychological process of facing one's shadow and emerging transformed. The concept of the shadow is also vividly present in modern culture. In films like Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's journey involves confronting the dark side, both externally and within himself. Similarly, in Batman, Bruce Wayne embodies the duality of light and shadow, using his own trauma to fight injustice. These stories resonate because they reflect our own internal struggles, We are drawn to characters who confront darkness, not because they are flawless but because they grow stronger through it. Jung saw religion as another realm where shadow material is often projected. Figures like Satan, demons, or the underworld represent humanity's fear of its own dark side. However, many spiritual traditions also speak of transformation through suffering or redemption through shadow work. In this way, mythology and religion both support Jung's idea that the journey to wholeness is not about avoiding the shadow but journeying through it. Real-world implications and benefits. In day-to-day life, shadow integration has profound implications. In personal relationships, it helps reduce blame and projection. Instead of reacting from a place of fear or judgment, individuals learn to communicate with vulnerability and self-awareness. This deepens intimacy and mutual respect, especially when both partners are engaged in self-reflection. In the workplace, shadow traits can be the difference between mediocrity and excellence. Leaders who recognize and own their flaws become more authentic and effective. Creativity, intuition, and problem-solving, traits often relegated to the unconscious, can flourish once the individual becomes whole. Shadow work supports emotional intelligence, making us better collaborators, listeners, and decision-makers. Lastly, engaging with the shadow enhances one's spiritual and existential well-being. Many people report a greater sense of peace, clarity, and purpose after doing this work. By understanding and embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the light and the dark, we no longer feel like victims of fate. Instead, we become authors of our own story, capable of growth, meaning, and connection. Conclusion. Embracing the whole self. Carl Jung's teachings offer a profound and challenging invitation to turn toward the parts of ourselves we fear, judge, or hide, and to love them back into the whole. The shadow is not our enemy, it is our teacher. It points the way to what we need to reclaim in order to live authentically and meaningfully. Integration of the shadow does not mean indulging every dark impulse, but understanding its origin, its purpose, and its potential. By recognizing the shadow, we dissolve the illusion that we are either entirely good or bad. We embrace the complexity of being human. This acceptance becomes the soil in which true growth and purpose take root. Our purpose is often found not by striving to be something we are not, but by uncovering what we already are, buried beneath years of avoidance and fear. In the end, Jung's message is both empowering and humbling. The journey toward wholeness is lifelong, and it requires courage, but those who dare to walk the path, who make peace with their shadow, gain more than insight. They gain freedom, authenticity, and a deeper connection to their soul's calling. It is in the dark, Jung reminds us, that we often find the light.